This is The Road Ahead, Chapter 12, Search and Rescue. Roman. The sound was distant at first. It seemed to echo off of the walls of Roman's mind, stuck in a dream where everything was hazy, everything numb. Roman. There, again it sounded. The voice was familiar. He welcomed it, pulled it in through the clouds that shrouded his thinking. If he could only decipher what it meant and why it wouldn't leave. Someone nudged his shoulder, and Roman's world of fog and darkness broke into something brighter. With a jolt, a thought came to his mind, and this time he had the speed to grasp for it. He knew that voice. Wake up, please. A command this time. His purpose, his way out of this sea of indifference. Roman latched onto the voice, feeling the spark that triggered his eyelids. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Roman awoke, and instantly regretted it. Pain jolted through his body as he sprung into consciousness, and he bit his cheek to keep from wincing. Though the original ache had dulled, a sharp pang still resided in his nerves when he had moved too fast. Roman was swarmed with light, much too bright. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment and blinked until the sharpness faded into something much more normal. A room, and a figure standing in front of him. Janice. The name fell from his lips before he could stop it. He met the eyes that last had been broken, covered with the reddened scar. Now they appeared determined, and upon further inspection, Roman realized. How did you get out? That was when he noticed the second person in the room. Janice, too, turned, and the boy offered a nervous smile. The small guard. Why was he here? Roman observed the boy as Janice undid his restraints. To finally be relieved of the binding's pressure was a welcome joy, and Roman gladly accepted Janice's help as he was pulled to his feet. He wobbled on his first attempt, nearly toppling to the floor if Janice hadn't caught him. Careful, he muttered. There was a true concern to his eyes, and he held Roman as if he would break. You've been through quite a lot. So have you. Roman brushed off the comment. He got to his feet with some difficulty. Who's he? The boy slowly perked up in the corner while Janice sucked in a knowing breath. This is Leo, Janice said slowly. Leo Kernos. Roman's gaze turned dark. He's like her? The only thing they share is blood. Janice stopped Roman before he could advance forward. He gestured to the markings that marred Roman's shoulders and collarbone. He helped you. Helped us. Leo will get us out of here. And you, of all people, trust him? It's all we have, is it not? Roman wished there were some other way. Anything besides the blood of the same one who had destroyed them. Leo couldn't be trusted. Roman was sure of it. Though at the end of the day, Janice was right. It was all they had. All right, he conceded. Janice offered a reassuring smile in return. It was odd, looking as if everything was fine again when it surely wasn't. Roman wondered if the man he had seen before still hid beneath that grin. Did Janice still share the same pain as Experiment 72? Or had he locked them away just as he had concealed his scar? We need to start moving, Leo spoke up. The guard shifts rotate at about this time. If we have any chance of sneaking out undetected, we have to leave now. A sudden thought crossed Roman's mind, and he turned back to the monitor, now powered off. What about the files? They're so close we can get them back. No. The words poured out of Janice all too fast. It's too dangerous. We need to get you out of here before anything more can happen. But, Janice, you're hurt, Roman. We need to go. And that was that. Leo had already made it to the door, his fingers clasped impatiently around the doorknob. Janice was quick to follow, and he too looked at Roman in anticipation. He couldn't help it. Somehow he just felt empty fleeing, like their whole grand adventure was lost the moment they decided to run. It didn't sit right with him. Heroes didn't run, they saved. The decision was made for him as Leo pulled the door open, glancing both ways before waving for them to follow. A cold hand wrapped around his own, and Roman met two golden eyes encased in scars before he was swept into the hallway. Would he ever see those eyes the same way again? Getting in was the easiest part, but even that had caused enough stress. Now, tucked away in the far corner of the facility, Virgil struggled to fish the map from his bag. He had tightened the straps so the pack lay across his back. He wasn't going to chance losing information, just like he wasn't going to chance losing anything else. Here, let me help. Patton offered from behind his shoulder. His touch was warm as he worked the zipper free, passing the folded paper to Virgil with a smile. Thank you, he muttered, and reflected the same smile Patton flashed his way. They had united nearly just as fast as they had broken apart, and thank goodness for that. Both Virgil and Remus had been a mess of words, spewing apologies until finally they realized they meant the same thing. They both had been afraid, angered even, but now they were going to get everyone back. As Virgil unfolded the map, Logan and Remus too joined his side. Despite what they had thought earlier, Logan was able to recover a floor plan of the facility after some deep research that had been hidden in Janice's old records. There's too many rooms. Virgil ran a nervous hand through his hair. How will we know where they're keeping Janice and Roman? If they haven't kept them separated. Logan was cut off by a light jab from Patton. We can't give up now. Let's just start with where they would most likely be kept. They scanned the map. Endless halls and storage. Everything was a mess of dark ink, similar to a mathematics graphing project. Hang on, look there. Remus reached over the group to point to a sector on the upper floor. The label read, Containment and Interrogation. You may be onto something. Obviously. Remus grinned, but it didn't quite meet his eyes. We should go. No one argued. They cut through the corridors in a rush of feet, turning corners until they could reach the far staircase. Logan stopped them just before they could step out into the open. Slowly, he raised a hand to the ceiling where a black cylinder was mounted. A light inside blinked red. Cameras. Motion sensing judging from the way they clicked each time a shadow passed outside the windows. Unfortunate, Logan muttered under his breath. Is there any other way? Virgil glanced over the map. I don't see anything. His expression fell. This is the only open staircase. Whoa, calm down, strategist. Remus plucked the map from Virgil's hands and crumpled it between his palms. Virgil looked about ready to perish. Remus, what are you... I believe it was you yourself, Logan, who said we may need something unconventional. And this, he held up the crumpled map, is uber conventional. Not a real word. Remus grinned. Now you're getting it. Here, Virgil, I need to borrow the rock. Virgil looked utterly perplexed. The rock? I stored it in your bag when you weren't looking like a genius. Obviously. To prove his point, Remus spun Virgil round and plucked a large stone from inside. It was jagged at the edges, definitely something that had just been laying on the road. Remus gave the rock an experimental toss in his hand, then carefully unfolded the map. He wrapped it around the stone, holding it all together before chucking it at the camera without warning. A metallic crackle surfaced before glass rained onto the floor. Remus carried a devious smile. "See? I used their own weapon against them." "That and a random rock." Virgil inspected the space. Sure enough, the red light had flickered off, and no alarms sounded. They were safe. "Remind me not to doubt you for a long while." Logan started towards the staircase, hesitant. "Shall we go then?" The group nodded and started up the stairs. With the presenting obstacles gone, things became much more frantic. Any other second loss could mean horrible things, and they refused to lose any more. Roman hadn't realized how much his injuries had taken a toll on him until he tried running. Simply keeping pace with the other two was enough to leave a stitch in his side and his limbs aching. Leo stopped them with a hand to his lips, and Roman used the opportunity to lean against the side wall, chest heaving. Their breaths were cut silent as voices fluttered through the hallway, one utterly recognizable. "I expect your tests to be done successful soon. I'm growing quite impatient." Robin Kernos. Roman could hear the clack of her stilettos down the corridor. The sound grew louder. They were getting closer. Leo reflected the same concern as he turned, eyes wide. "She's coming." He glanced around the hall, settling on a door that was unlocked when he tested it. "Get in here and stay quiet." He pushed both Roman and Janice inside the closet before they could protest. It was dark, so much that Roman couldn't see an inch butt in front of him, but his vision wasn't needed to know they were pressed dangerously close in the confined space. Roman could feel Janice's tense breaths upon his cheek. Their chests were pressed together, faces inches apart. Incredibly close. If it weren't so dark, Roman would have met the shimmer of golden eyes. Instead, he heard a hushed whisper. "Are you all right?" "Of course," Roman lied, but only partly. He sure enough could manage. Janice clearly didn't believe him. "I promise we'll fix things. Leo has it under control." "That's not what I'm worried about," Roman admitted. "Janice, I need to ask you something." He was cut off by the sound of footsteps just outside. Leo's shadow tensed beneath the bottom of the door. "Hello, Mother." The voice was quiet, nervous even. This behavior was so much closer to the boy he had seen in the database. Leo was one of many faces, though. Who wasn't by now? "It's awfully odd for you to be roaming this sector at such a time, Leo." The scientist's voice emerged, cold as ice. "I believe your post lies within the West Wing today." "Right. I was just heading there now." "By going east?" Robin's words were laced with suspicion. Roman felt Janice tense at his side. "You sent out orders to avoid the containment rooms. This is the quickest way." Leo's shadow shifted under the doorframe. He was stepping foot to foot. Roman couldn't blame him for being so on edge. Dr. Kernos didn't speak to him as if he were her son, rather a soldier. There was a beat of silence, enough that Roman feared those outside would hear the frantic beating of his heart. He felt cool fingers wrap around his palm, and Janice squeezed his hand lightly for reassurance. To their fortune, Dr. Kernos responded with a sigh. "Very well, then. Move quickly, Leo. I don't want to see you out of place again." "Yes, Mother." "Very good." Roman swore he could sense her blood-curdling smile outside. How Leo didn't end up the same, he would never quite understand. "Go on, then. You're wasting time." Footsteps echoed down the hall, and shortly after the click of stilettos disappeared into the other direction. They held their breaths until Leo's shadow returned. Even as he reopened the door, they were wary. Then, with a hand outstretched, he beckoned them into the corridor. Just around this corner. At least, I think. I'm beginning to regret giving you that map. You're just jealous? I came up with the better idea. Remus watched Virgil scowl back behind his shoulder. They had long passed the stairs and now worked to maneuver their way through the upper floor. Signs lined each doorway, though most offered no help. Storage, supplies, more storage. Virgil's mind swarmed with the endless titles, none of them right. Virgil, wait! Patton's voice stopped them all in their tracks, and they turned to where he pointed to a silver plaque. Containment and interrogation. The group rushed down the corner. So close. Logan had fallen into the front of the group. Though not the fastest, he had come to have the most endurance, and could easily hear Virgil's instructions while scoping out the scene. The space before him was a mess of silver doors, all without proper labeling. It would be nearly impossible to guess which held their friends in due time. They rounded the space, searching for so much as a window. Nothing. Logan readied himself to turn back, though he froze as he heard approaching footsteps. He held up a hand, already catching shadows moving down the same hall they were about to enter. Remus stepped forward to investigate, though Logan held him back. With a finger to his lips, Logan found the weapon he had stored at his side. He found the candlestick in the household, and in case of emergency had kept it close. Weapon raised, Logan took a deep breath before rushing towards the movement. He disappeared round the corner, clashing with the same shadows that ran down the hall. A crash sounded. Remus, Virgil, and Patton were there in a second, though instead of guards swarming their friend, they saw something much more stunning. You're alive, Logan gasped. In front of them stood both Roman and Janice, eyes wide and mouths agape. Logan knew they had all reflected the same expression. They had done it. Remus was the first to break from his stupor and rushed forward to crush Roman in a huge embrace. He spun him round in circles, though set him down once Roman winced from the pressure. Janice was next to meet him, offering a tired smile and pulling Remus close. He whispered something in Remus's ear, where he then broke away and eyed the boy that kept a fair distance back. The guard he had incapacitated, Logan realized. He questioned the boy's involvement, but decided to ignore it in order to reunite with Roman. Logan broke from his thoughts upon hearing Roman's voice. The theater major was smiling. What? Do I not get a hello from you too? Both Logan and Patton answered by wrapping Roman in a less restricting hug. Reunited again, it felt as if everything had been clicked back into place. Roman had begun to laugh, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably as he held on tight. When they finally broke away, Patton was the first to speak. We're so glad you're all right. Me too. Roman smiled softly, squeezing Patton's hands in his own. Thank God you all made it out all right. I'm sorry for this mess. Logan shook his head. You need not apologize. What matters is that we found you. It was very courageous for you to go after Janice. You repaid the favor just as well. Roman glanced over to the others. Janice was speaking to Virgil, a reassuring hand placed on the younger's shoulder. He was smiling. Logan followed his gaze and gained a knowing look to his eyes. They would discuss it later. For now, they needed to depart. Roman started forward, though winced as a sharp pain shot up his side. He still wasn't used to the way his muscles ached when he moved too fast, and it showed. Patton was at his side in an instant. Gentle. He helped Roman up as his eyes trailed nervously over his friend's form. Roman was covered in bruises and scrapes, along with the burns that still continued to heal, and the one that wouldn't. What did they do to you? Patton's eyes were wide with concern, and his hand hovered over the gash on Roman's cheek. Don't worry about it, Patton. I'm all right. Don't be so valiant, Prince. Janice was behind him in a second. Though his eyes held a cunning spark, Roman knew he was still worried. It seemed he had gone back to hiding behind his cleverness. No one but Roman would know his vulnerability for now. He's been wounded, he said to Patton. A quick glance over his form as Janice re-inspected Roman's injuries. More than he's willing to let on. I'm not the only one who's hurt, Roman protested. He looked to Janice, but the other had already gone away, back into the shadows. Roman wouldn't stand for it. We should get going. There can't be much time left, Leo called out ahead of the group. They gathered and followed his lead down the hall, though Roman shifted to the back of the mass. The sound of their shoes echoed through the corridor, just quick enough to be urgent. Janice had taken residence in the back, his expression surprisingly blank when no one else was watching. Without a word, Roman joined his side. He let the rushed footsteps fill the space, all until Janice spoke. It's not wise for you to remain on the edge of the group like this, especially in your state. I can take care of myself just fine, thank you, Roman replied with lips downturned. And honestly, I could say the same about you. Janice turned to scowl at him. I wasn't the one nearly killed with whatever concoction they've brewed in this place. But you nearly were, once. Roman had meant for the comment to get Janice off his case, though instead it sent something through his expression. Pain, stored within the memories he had tried so desperately to hide. Janice clenched his jaw. I don't need to see you, or anyone, for that matter, get hurt again. He pushed past Roman. It's best you stay away. He strode forward before Roman could follow, and dove between Remus and Virgil. Hiding, but from what? Roman couldn't help but think of when Janice had called out. He had begged Dr. Kernos to stop. But why? He could have saved the information they had worked so hard to collect. In fact, Janice seemed perfectly willing to give up his own life for the cause. And yet, ask me your questions, and I'll answer. Just don't hurt him. The words had trickled in his mind as he had slipped out of consciousness. Janice had given it all away for him, yet now he would barely acknowledge Roman's presence. It made absolutely no sense, though nothing really did anymore. If only the pounding in his head could clear enough to let him string his thoughts together. They made it to the end of the sector and down the stairs. With Leo's guidance, the map wasn't needed. He knew the right passages that granted access without detection. Roman completed the rest of the trip in silence. It didn't feel right to distract from escape with conversation. Not until he knew for sure they were safe. All until the side doors came into view. The exit was placed at the end of a long corridor, but to reach it they first had to cross a smaller passage labeled Processing. We're in the lab area, Leo explained. They don't like any dangerous materials getting out, or in for that matter. He beckoned the six with him towards the first set of doors where a keypad lay. It blinked red for each number that was pressed, and uttered a shrill beep after the code had been entered. Patton peeked from the side at the keypad still blinking red. Is that supposed to happen? Leo studied the device with a sigh. Simple mistake. I must have hit the wrong number. He entered the code again, only for the same result. His pale complexion blanched further. Is there not an ID you can use? Logan, too, had approached the device, eyeing it with some concern. My mom never gave me one. She claimed I would never need to go anywhere without her, which is code for she didn't want me finding things out on my own. Leo tapped at the keypad. I've used this before. My number should work. He let out a sigh of frustration and input the code a third time. Roman's spirits rose when the red light finally vanished, only to plummet when instead the whole area lit up in crimson. The keycard flashed 2 words: unauthorized input. The alarm sounded soon after. Panic flooded through Roman's veins, and in Janice's eyes he saw the same. Everyone was frozen. Then the pair of shadows came bounding down the hall. They were unidentifiable, just 2 guards who had been closest to the alarm, but the weapons they carried screamed danger all the same. Options flew through Roman's mind, though he couldn't slow them enough to grasp one. Run, hide, fight back. Their weapons flickered on, crackling just as they had when Roman was bound. Run, hide, fight back. He saw their glow in the flashing lights. He had gotten quite used to the way the alarm painted the whole room in scarlet. Run, hide, fight back. His aching body begged him not to move. Such things were not an option. Roman could already hear the scoldings he would receive, could already see Logan moving closer, ready to hold him back from something stupid. Stupid or courageous? It all depended on whether he succeeded. Princes didn't cower. Roman charged straight at the 2 and swung at the first. The blow connected square with their face, and they fell back. He couldn't help but smirk. Wounded, and they still couldn't take him. There was a rush of limbs next. Both guards may not have expected what came first, but they were plenty ready now. This time, however, they had 6 others to deal with. Logan was the first to strike, sweeping one guard's feet from beneath them while Virgil delivered a swift kick to the other's stomach. Leo even managed to throw a few of his own punches, fueled by pure adrenaline. Roman was eager to join in on the fight, though a strong pair of arms wrapped around his torso. He fought to protest until he heard a voice in his ear. Chill out, Ro. This isn't your battle. Remus, not as fast but definitely stronger, dragged him out of the fight before Roman could break away. He continued to shout obscenities until his brother had placed him back down by the door. As much as he hated to acknowledge it, Roman had begun to feel his own exhaustion loom over him. It settled and left his limbs heavy. Even his burns had begun to sting. The medicine he had been given must have worn off. The confrontation had ended soon after, though that didn't stop the sirens. They didn't have much time. Leo ran to Roman's side, an ID card bearing the guard's face in his hand. He swiped it through the scanner. The light flashed green, and with a click, the door opened. You need to go, now. He pushed Roman through the open doorway and ushered the others through with frantic motions. Leo's curls had been plastered to his forehead with sweat, eyes widened in the flashing lights. There was a rush of footsteps, and everyone had crossed the threshold. Roman lingered for a second, hand kept firmly on the handle. Leo looked at him confused. What are you doing? You need to get out of here. And what about you? Roman called above the cry of the alarms. It'll be fine. I can come up with a lie. But will she believe you? Leo's gaze hardened, and he looked to the floor. Shadows emerged down the hall, and with it, a chorus of shouting. That doesn't matter. He turned as the first sight of guards passed around the corner, then gazed back at Roman. You guys will be back to fix it, I'm sure. He pushed Roman away before he could protest, yanking the door shut. The latch clicked, sealing them away from any danger. Now the exit loomed above them, and it was no question what to do next. They ran, through the brush and through the darkness. Nothing but sharp breaths and pounding feet filled the air. The crimson glow of alarms shone distantly, but they ignored it. They had to get away, as far away as possible. Roman didn't remember much of the car ride back, only that it was one of speed and sharp corners. Janice didn't drive. he shouldn't have in his state. Time passed all too quick, and before Roman knew it, they had reached the house deemed Fort Darkside. Rapid breaths and beating hearts slowed as they stepped upon the porch. Virgil was the one to unlock the door, though Janice was the first inside. They drank in the familiar space as if it were addictive. Safe. They were finally safe. He didn't even see Janice sneak off somewhere upstairs, nor the way Virgil and Remus exchanged a nervous glance. All he felt was the pillows of the couch. Roman was asleep in a matter of seconds. This has been The Road Ahead, Chapter 12. Thank you so very much for listening, and I will see you next time.